Welcome to all who have joined us from different corners of the world. We have gathered here for a farewell event to our own Anat Hoffman, a fierce fighter for justice and equality, who led the Israel Religious Action Center for the past 20 years. This is an opportunity to say how much we love and appreciate Anat, and to thank her for everything she has done for Israel and for the entire Jewish world. You're welcome to write your short comment, messages, blessings and wishes for Anat in the chat during the event. I hope you enjoy this evening or afternoon or morning, wherever you are. I'm honored, it is my pleasure to welcome Rabbi Rick Jacobs, President of the Union for Reform Judaism, to say a few words of inspiration in honor of Anat. Rabbi Jacobs, please.
Thank you, Orly. In the pantheon of the ancient Near East, there was a warrior goddess named Anat. And to all of us, Anat Hoffman is no less than a modern-day warrior goddess for justice. We're gathered tonight across the globe, united in our love and gratitude to this extraordinary woman for her inspirational leadership over these past decades. Yesterday's parasha is still ringing in our ears. In Genesis 18, we read that Abraham had chutzpah klapei shamayim. He had moral audacity that could not be silenced. He takes the Holy One to task for being willing to sweep away the righteous along with the wicked in Sodom and Gomorrah. Abraham presses his case saying, Hashofet kol haaretz lo ya'aseh mishpat? Shall not the judge of all the earth deal justly? We marvel at Abraham's backbone, wondering, what kind of human possesses that much moral courage? Well, can't we all easily imagine someone who has that same amount of moral courage? Yes, we know her name. It is Anat Hoffman. And she, we know, could take on even the creator of the universe for falling short of the divine standard for righteousness. And since Anat would have no fear facing off with the Rabbonu Shel Olam, the master of the universe, you can appreciate that no earthly figures, from the rabbi of the Western Wall to the prime minister of the state of Israel, could ever intimidate her. With audacity and art, metaphor and moxie, she's injustice's worst nightmare. But it's not only Anat's strength and audacity. She also possesses enormous heart, enormous empathy. I vividly remember accompanying Anat to a monastery in Jerusalem that had just been firebombed. Anat expressed love and shame from the entire Jewish people. And later, when we met with the Israeli Minister of Public Security, he tried to tell us that the security forces catch and prosecute almost all of the perpetrators of these arson attacks. Evidently, this powerful member of the Israeli cabinet had no idea who he was dealing with, as Anat unfolded a scroll as long as Megillat Esther, with dozens of arson attacks on Christian holy sites in the state of Israel that had never, ever been solved. As usual, Anat was living Isaiah's teaching, Kashofar harem kolecha, raise your voice like a ram's horn. In fact, Anat never stopped raising her voice like a ram's horn in the face of injustice or inequality. Here in the Jewish state, it's commonplace by many who claim a monopoly on Jewish authenticity to overlook the imperatives of social justice. Israel's ultra-Orthodox chief rabbis are zealous about making sure no chametz is found in restaurants or stores on Pesach, and they are scrupulous about the Shabbat restrictions in Israeli hotels. But you will rarely hear them speak out about their government's inadequate housing policies, or the staggering gap between rich and poor, or the despair of Palestinian citizens of Israel who feel that their lives can never improve by playing within the system. It is in the face of this reality that Anat Hoffman's leadership has stood so firm, finding ever new creative ways to dismantle racism, fight gender segregation, and yes, oh yes, regularly sneak a Torah into the hotel. Like John Lewis, she's always ready to get into some good trouble. Anat Hoffman, you have mentored an entire army of justice warriors who have become now your disciples in this holy work. A few years back, Anat wrote a new prayer for the state of Israel. It's the one we regularly recite at URJ biennials, conferences, and holy days throughout our reform movement in North America. It powerfully expresses Anat's life work. With this, I will conclude. She writes, "In the name of the pioneers who made the deserts bloom, give us the tools to cultivate a diversity of Jewish expression in Israel. In the name of our fallen soldiers, give us courage to stand up to the words and ways of zealots, those in our own midst and those among our neighbors. In the name of Israeli inventors who have amazed the world with their innovations, help us apply the same ingenuity to finding a path to peace. In the name of all these individuals, grant us the strength to conquer doubt and despair in Israel, replacing doubt with action, replacing despair with hope." And as we conclude Anat's stirring prayer and praise her inspiring work, let us together as one say, Amen.
Thank you so much, Rabbi Rick Jacobs, for your inspiring words. Indeed, amen. David Broza and Anat have a few things in common. David was born in Haifa, where Anat lives now. But more importantly, and this is the fact that probably few of you know, David was a Madrid swim champion, freestyle 1500 meters, when he was 15, and Anat was Israel's swim champion when she was 18 and 19, freestyle and backstroke. We have asked David to sing 2 songs for Anat, one song to fill us with optimism and hope called Yeh Tov, All Will Be Okay, and another song about Haifa, Anat's current hometown.
שלום ענת, הגעתי במיוחד להקליט לך ולהנעים לך, אם לא מקצת משיריי, ואפילו בתוך השירים אני לא רוצה להאריך יותר מדי, אבל שמעתי שאת אוהבת במיוחד שיר או שניים, אז אני אעשה חלקים, כי עם השנים הם נהיו כל כך ארוכים. אני מביט מהחלון וזה עושה לי די עצוב, האביב חלף עבר לו, מי יודע אם ישוב. הליצן היה למלך, הנביא נהיה ליצן, ושכחתי את הדרך, אבל אני עוד כאן, ויהיה טוב, יהיה טוב, כן. לפעמים אני נשבר, אז הלילה, הלילה, איתך אני נשאר. לכן, כמו שאמרתי, עברו הרבה שנים. יש בית אחד שאני מאוד אוהב, אני הייתי רוצה להקדיש לו את הזמן ולתת לך אולי גם ליהנות ממנו. עוד נלמד לחיות ביחד בין חורשות עצי זיתים, ילדים יחיו בלי פחד, בלי גבולות, בלי מקלטים, על קברים יפרח העשב לשלום, חום ואהבה. 100 שנים של חרב, ועוד לא אבדה התקווה. ויהיה טוב, כן, לפעמים אני נשבר. אז הלילה, הלילה, איתך אני נשאר. ויהיה טוב, כן, יהיה טוב, כן, לפעמים אני נשמע. אז הלילה, הלילה, איתך אני נשאר. אני מביט מהחלון, אולי מגיע, כן, מגיע, כן, מגיע יום חדש. כן, 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 יהיה טוב. במיוחד לענת. וואי. אמרו לי שעברת את עוברת לחיפה או משהו, אז גם קצת מהשיר הזה. יש לי שווה, יש לי ילד, ואבא שלי עובד בנמל. הולכים לישון בדיוק ב10, כי לא רוצים לבזבז חשמל. כן, חיפה, חיפה, העיר עם תחתית, חיפה, חיפה, עיר עם עתיד, חיפה, חיפה, עיר אמיתית. 4 בבוקר אני כבר עסוק, 2 אוטובוסים לבית הזיקוק, כן, עובד ומזיע, אני רק פועל עד שהערב יורד בכרמל. חיפה, חיפה, עיר עם תחתית, חיפה, חיפה, עיר עם עתיד, חיפה, חיפה, עיר חיפאית אמיתית. ענת, ענת, כולם, ענת, ענת, כן, 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 חיפה, חיפה, העיר עם תחתית, חיפה, חיפה, עיר עם עתיד, חיפה, חיפה, עיר חיפאית אמיתית.
And now, when we're with the right groove and happy mode, we can go on. Gil Chovav is an Israeli journalist and author whose interests are food and writing. He's the great-grandson of Eliezer ben Yehuda, the reviver of the Hebrew language, the grandson of Itamar ben Avi, who was a pioneer of modern Hebrew journalism, and the son of Moshe and Drora Chovav, founding members of Israel's modern-day public radio. Gil and Anat share an enthusiastic love and passion for both the Hebrew language and good food. We have asked them to talk about food and language, about the Israelis and Israeli food. I'm sure it is going to be interesting and make us hungry.
Chovav, I'm thrilled to have you as my guest on my retirement party. And I wonder, as an expert on the Hebrew language, how do you say pluralism in Hebrew?
Ooh, you don't say it.
You don't say
You know, it's an interesting question because I was a friend of Nomi Shemer, one of our best poets of the modern Israel. And she told me that a language does not create words for values that it doesn't need. So I said, for instance, and she said, in Hebrew, we don't have a word for tact. So I guess that pluralism, we're not there yet.
There is a word for accountability. The thing is that when you say it, you spit inadvertently. And it's accountability in Hebrew is achrayutiyut.
Oh God, no, it doesn't work. Uh, a language is an interesting thing. You know, sometimes words just don't catch, and it's okay. You may use foreign words because we're the landlords. Hebrew won. It's ours, and we can afford absorbing words from beautiful languages such as Arabic and useful languages such as English and tech.
Could you share with our audience you are royalty when it comes to Hebrew? What is your background on that?
So I'll tell you two things. One, I'll tell you my background, and the second one, I'll refer to royalty, okay? Or to nobility. My background is I'm not the, but a great grandson of Eliezer ben Yehuda, who revived Hebrew, as a spoken language. So Hebrew was, if not dead, at least dormant for 2,000 years. And because of him and the many, 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 many sacrifices that he made, we speak Hebrew. Children are born in Hebrew in Israel. We may be smart in Hebrew, we may be stupid in Hebrew, we may elect in a very strange way in Hebrew, we die in Hebrew, we're happy in Hebrew, and it's an unprecedented miracle in the history of mankind. No dead language was resurrected as a mother tongue. The closest we get is Catalan. If you go to Barcelona, you'll see street signs in Catalan. You'll be able to open a bank account in Catalan. But when children are born, even to Catalonian families in Catalonia, first of all, they speak Spanish, and then they learn the native language that they want to adopt. So this is my lineage. But since you said royalty, and I'm really opposed to that, I'll tell you a little story. So when my great-grandmother passed away, the wife of Eliezer ben Yehuda, his first wife, he married her younger sister. And she described her burial, God forbid, her bridal trip from Moscow through Turkey to Palestine, up the road to Jerusalem to meet the two orphans that were left by her sister. She came to be their mother. And I read this description and I said, this is aristocracy. This is our Mayflower. And then she gets to the point when she meets them and she says, two such filthy, ugly apes I have never seen in my life. And this is the royalty that I am. A filthy, ugly ape. Please remember that.
In my opinion,
Yes.
correct me if I'm wrong, Hebrew is the crown jewel of the whole Zionist endeavor. It's the one achievement I can stand 100% behind. Many times I think Hebrew is wiser than the people who speak it. Certainly this week, I am convinced of that. And the taste of Hebrew, the words that we are, is sweet. Mm-hmm. Do you share this opinion?
I think that Hebrew is a brilliant, brilliant, brilliant victory. And we had so many losses in our history.
Victory over what?
Victory over non-existence. I mean, we should remember that for my great-grandfather, Eliezer ben Yehuda, but for all of our people, it was speak Hebrew or die. You know, a few years ago, I was invited by the government of Belarus, where Eliezer ben Yehuda, where he was born. It's a village called Luzhki. At the time, it was Lithuania. Nowadays, it's Belarus. And they want to reclaim great culture figures that were born in Belarus. So they put a statue of his on the main avenue, and they inaugurated like a big, big, big stone that they placed at the entrance to the house in which he supposedly was born. And it was a very emotional moment for me. And a few minutes later, they took us to the nearby forest where they showed us the mass grave of the 452 Jews of Luzhki that were assassinated in the Holocaust. So I think that it was clear both to Eliezer ben Yehuda and to Zionists that if we do not have a common language, our fate would be the fate of the masons of the Tower of Babel. And Hebrew won, he won, we won. It's a very sweet victory, no doubt.
For those of you who don't know, you are also a phenomenal cook, and you introduced Israel to the idea of television programs that are devoted to cooking. Is there a connection between your love of language and your love of cooking?
None.
No.
None. No connection.
So tell us about the Israeli kitchen.
So many people go, Israeli cuisine is having, we must admit it, is having a moment or an hour or even a week right now. And in many cases, people ask me, why is it so? What happened? So there are many reasons. One is that it's very vegetarian and vegan friendly. It's a very fresh cuisine. It's Eastern Mediterranean, which is fun because Mediterranean was hip, and now we look for something which would be the next step. And Eastern Mediterranean with bolder, sharper tastes is a good way to go, let's put it this way. But if we need to be cynical and say the truth, I think that it's also very Instagram friendly, which really helps the Israel kitchen because, no, really, think of it. Brown food is the most delicious food, but you cannot shoot brown food. Take a food photographer and tell him shoot a chocolate cake or a roast chicken and he commits suicide on the spot. Israeli food is not brown. Israeli food looks like a street light. It's red and orange and green and this and that. And it shoots really well. So it's very popular. And Polish and Russian food, which I deeply respect and really love, it always looks like somebody ate it before you did. It does. And it's a problem.
Look, in the pita, we can get all these colorful things together, pour tahina sauce over them, and they all live together happily. Why can't we take the model of the pita bread filled with falafel and be together, speak the same language? What's wrong with us?
We're Jewish. Take two Jews and you have three opinions. And it's much more problematic. You know, in many cases, I see naive attempts of peacemaking, usually done by Americans with the best intentions, whom I really love and embrace. But they say, let us make them break bread together. Let them sit around one table and everything will be okay. No, I'm sorry, it's much more complicated than that. Making peace with our neighbors is difficult. Making peace with ourselves is difficult. Believe you me, frying falafel is much easier.
Gil,
Yes.
what is your favorite perfect Israeli meal?
Well, I'll tell you what's my favorite dish and what's my favorite cuisine.
Okay.
So my favorite dish would be kubane, which is very festive Yemenite bread that you eat for Saturday brunch. And we used to eat it at my Yemenite grandma's home, which was a very poor home, but filled with love and light and, you know. And the Yemenite proverb goes that whenever kubane is on the table, all other breads should kneel down. So, and rightly so. It's a wonderful bread. My favorite cuisine is Persian. And unfortunately, I'm not Persian. I'm everything else. I'm Lithuanian and Tunisian and Yemenite and you name it. I'm not Persian. I didn't have the luck. And I can't go to Persia. Now, at least. What's yours?
I'm a sucker for the American South.
I was afraid you were going to say marshmallow or something like that.
No, the American South. Pot liquor and those corn muffins and fried chicken and grits and when I eat them, I suddenly get the accent and everything. The South and the hospitality in the South is so, I can't even, it's so incongruent. The stories about how blacks were treated in the South and this outstanding hospitality of Southerners. And I'm drawn to the South. And I think when you visit the South of the United States, you see still the scars of the Civil War. And since we are split right in the middle, I'm very sensitive to Civil War, the possibility of Civil War. So the South.
Okay.
You wrote in one of your books that when Señor del Mundo, God, when he closes,
He?
she, he,
We don't know.
when
But from you, I would expect to say
no,
he or
because
she.
Señor is a male.
Yes,
isn't it?
but maybe he's a transgender.
Okay, so how would you pronounce? How would you say that saying
Wait,
without
what's the
using
saying?
the word male? That God doesn't shut a window before he, they
Yeah.
open 24 doors.
Yes, this is.
Where does it come from?
It comes from, well, it comes from my grandmother. I would assume that it's a saying in Ladino. But, you know, these are difficult times for us in Israel right now. And
Really?
yeah, but I want to surprise you. And I must say that I'm still optimistic. And I wouldn't say raised to be optimistic. I was tamed to be optimistic. And it's a fortune. I don't know how it happened, but my grandmother always told me not to lose hope, and that if you open your hand, well, she may have believed in God. I do not, but she said that God would give. Don't worry. And but I do believe that if you hope, and if you strive, and if you work, good things are coming your way. And this loss that we had in the last elections may be even a great new beginning, or a wake-up call, or something that would start something good.
Can you give examples of things that give you hope?
I'll tell you a little story. So I don't remember when it happened. A few years ago, there was some debate about gay rights in Israel, and I am gay. And I step into a cab, and the driver is the guy who is supposed to be my enemy. So he's a Haredi guy, a Shasnik, dressed in black and white, so very religious. It was fine. Of course, it wasn't. I guess he didn't know that I was gay. Not that had he known, he would have acted differently. But we were talking, and then he gets a phone call, and I see that there are tears in his eyes. And I tell him, "Is everything okay?" And he said, "I just got word that my little son, 4 years old, needs a hearing aid." So I told him, "Okay," and so, okay, maybe he's not happy that his son needs a hearing aid, but he said, "Wow, and what would people think of him, and what would this?" And I told him, "Look at yourself and look at myself. We both have glasses. What's the difference?" So he would have glasses on his ear, not on his nose. And immediately we were friends. And I think that when you face difficulty together, you tend to forget about differences.
I also have a taxi driver story.
Please.
Sami Michael, who's the president of the Association of Civil Rights in Israel, was invited from Haifa, where he lives, where I live too, to speak in Tel Aviv. And a taxi driver is sent to bring Sami Michael to his lecture. And right the minute Sami Michael is in the car, the driver says, "We got to kill all the Arabs. There's no other choice. We must kill them all." And Sami Michael has this decision. He's going to engage with this guy or just say, just take me and let's be quiet. And he decides to engage. And he says, "Who's going to kill all the Arabs?" And the driver says, "All of us, you, me, doctors, lawyers, we all have to take a gun and shoot them." And Sami Michael, as they're riding out of Haifa, says, let's look at this neighborhood. Let's imagine you stop the taxi, we both go upstairs, we shoot everyone on the third floor, everyone on the second floor, everyone on the first floor. We're back in the taxi, and suddenly you hear a whimper. We left a 3-year-old, she's alive, and she's crying. Are you going back to shoot her in the head. And the taxi driver turns and says, "You are so cruel, sir. You are so cruel." This gives me hope, because what Sami Michael unpacked in his talent is that some of the rhetoric we hear from Israel, which makes your blood curdle, it's only rhetoric. That when you really sit with some of the zealot Israelis, I'm not talking about the one in jail that murdered our prime minister. I'm talking about zealots, other zealots.
Yes.
Sometimes their bark is worse than their
In,
bite.
in most cases.
And it's not as horrible as one may think. If this qualifies as a source of hope, then it is. And also something about hope. The word hope, in Hebrew, it's tikva. It comes from the word kav. And kav is a thread. It appears in the book of Joshua as the beginning of a thread that a collaborator with us, Rachav, who happened to be a prostitute, she v'tikshor tikvat chut hashani. She tied the beginning of a thread. So when we look for hope, we have to look for something. They knew the word for cable. They knew the word for rope. They chose kav.
Yeah.
Something
Yeah. Very
lighter.
delicate, very small, and that requires a lot of work. And this is what we need to do. So talking about words, I understand that just like my great-grandfather, you have created a Hebrew word, or if not created, at least let it rise from the depth of...
So yes, and it's great. Actually, it's very satisfying to hear people say a word that they didn't know before. The first thing about social action is that to name the phenomena you're working against. If there's no name, there was sexual harassment before we had a name for it, but people didn't complain about it because they didn't have the words. So when we discovered that the ultra-Orthodox are pushing the Egged company to do a pilot, it was just an experiment, to have women in the back of the bus and men in the front of the bus and see if that works for the ultra-Orthodox community. And of course, within a few years, it became 2,500 rides a day where women are at the back of the bus. How do you call that phenomena? It's exclusion, but exclusion is not Hebrew. So we found a word. The word is hadara. It has this resh that's hard for Americans, but hadara. And now, if you stop any Israeli in the street and you ask, what is hadarat nashim, exclusion of women? What is it? People would say, oh, it means that in El Al plane, a woman is sitting down and the ultra-Orthodox man refuses to sit next to her. And just so you know, we won the case with El Al, and it is and all other carriers to Israel. And if you are faced with a person who's refusing to sit next to you because of your gender, and if it's the flight attendant that tells you to move, then you can sue the pants off the company and you will win, because we won a landmark case with a wonderful client. I must tell you, we have some phenomenal clients. People who are willing, like Renee Rabinovich, who was 81 when she approached us, an 81-year-old Holocaust survivor from Belgium who goes against El Al and wins. It was a great moment of pride for her. And in a way, it's modern Zionism. This is what Zionism 2022 looks like.
It's tikkun olam?
It's tikkun olam. You know that a kid in America asked me, how do you say tikkun olam in Hebrew?
How do you say McDonald's in English? And this is what annoys me in this conversation, because you are quitting, and exactly when we need to do a lot of work. I'm here to say, don't leave us.
I have news for you. I have someone taking my place, Orly Erez Lachovsky, which is God's gift to man. She'll do a phenomenal job, and it's just the right time. It's time to retire after 20 years of this stuff. And let the new generation do what they're supposed to do.
Yes, but I'm wondering whether the new generation has that wonderful trait of yours that whenever you see something that is unjust, like a Spitfire, you zoom in. It's, to look at it from the side, it may be frightening.
Not whenever. The truth is that I have to, enemies you have to choose also. You have to learn how to. 10 things upset me every day. I have to carefully choose the one that and when I zoom on something, it's never alone. I have partners everywhere, both in Israel and abroad. that are willing to fight a good fight. And what's wonderful is that one person can make a difference. In Israel, one not only have wonderful mischief, but also make a difference in the world. I'm very happy with what I did for 20 years.
You're
And
going
it's
to
done.
go on doing it, honey.
Yeah,
No,
you think so?
no, wait,
You
wait.
think?
Yes, yes. Also because I know you, you won't be able to sit and say, well, I have retired and I'm willing to place a bet. I mean, the best meal in Israel, if on me, no, I'm not cooking, yes, I'm buying, but on me, if you really retire, and you won't. We're going to chase you, and we're going to make you go on working for us.
So thank you. And I want to thank you, Gil. You have a very busy life. And it's wonderful that you've honored us with your coming here. It's a treat for me. This is what I look like when I'm thrilled. I'm thrilled. Toda rabba.
I'm thrilled as well. Toda rabba rabba.
Indeed, what a treat. I have learned so many things from Anat in the 18 years that we've been working together. But the three most important ones are courage, creativity, and persistence. Let's start with courage. Years ago, when IRAC's offices were located on Jaffa Street, but our cars were parked at the HUC campus on King David Street, we used to walk through Independence Park to and from the office to the parking lot. Once, I walked with Anat through the park, and we saw a police officer standing next to a Palestinian young man in the park. Anat told me, let's just stand and watch. Our gaze will influence the way the police officer will behave toward this person. And so we stood. The policeman was agitated by our presence and demanded we move on. I was a little scared, but Anat said firmly and calmly, we have the right to stand here. It is a public place. The policeman asked for our details, and Anat said no problem. We stood and watched. The policeman tried to take the Palestinian man behind a building, which was in the park, but then came back and let him go. This experience taught me such an important lesson. We should never look away because bad things happen when good people stay silent. Anat, I thank you for your courage. Next, creativity. Anat is the most creative person I have ever met. She has this special way of looking at things, always suggesting the most unique idea, be it a brilliant idea for a campaign or an original idea for a gift, such as the famous stones from Jerusalem. Maybe the fact that Anat was a swimmer and is used to swimming against the current caused her to come up with these crazy but always amazing ideas. Anat, it has been such a pleasure to watch your creativity and be inspired by it. And finally, persistence. Anyone dealing with social change knows how much energy one needs in order to continue to fight, and how draining the struggle can be. Anat knows one or two things about persistence. She has served as a Jerusalem Council member for 14 years and as IRAC Executive Director for 20 years. She has been praying at the Western Wall for 33 years, every month, rain or shine. She has endured violence, hostility, and incitement, but she persisted. What an inspiring lesson of never giving up. This lesson is even more important in today's very troubling political reality. Anat, you have taught me this and so much more. Israeli society and Jews around the world owe you so much. We thank you and we love you.
I discovered I have an uncanny ability to get awfully mad and get a lot of other people awfully upset and change something. At long last, after 27 years, the government of Israel decided enough is enough. Let's give you jurisdiction over another part of the wall.
I have learned from Anat the importance of being true to one's values, of persevering even when we face setbacks.
I have a criminal record and I always broke the same law.
Hello.
This law, thankfully, yesterday was erased from Israel's law books.
Never give up. Never, ever, ever. If it takes 30 years for the leaders of Israel to understand, then so be it.
The mayor of Jerusalem used to call me names, derogatory names. I didn't like it. I wanted to fight it. I looked for distinct patterns where the mayor silences women versus how he silences men. Women, as a result, were interrupted 7 times more than men. I publicized it in all the Israeli papers. I sent a copy to his wife, and he stopped doing it.
Give me 10 Anat Hoffmans, and I could change the world.
Orthodoxy needs a good kick in the pants to have good competition. The monopoly is bad for Orthodoxy, bad for Israel, bad for Judaism, and it's time we pushed for freedom of choice in this matter.
How could it be that the land of Golda Meir and the woman pioneer of the home and the combat soldier with the F-16, how could this be segregated in the public sphere? How could this be?
He called me klafte, yente, kachke, mechashefe.
So the minority. 36 times in the Bible it says, do right by a minority. This should be our policy.
And the highlight of the trip in the United States was meeting President Barack Obama. He came to the biennial convention of the Reform Movement, and he shook my hand, this hand. From there, I went to England, where I spoke at Limud, which is a huge Jewish conference, and I talked about segregation and the wall.
You don't just have a right to criticize these issues in Israel. You have a duty to keep your mouth open, your minds open, and to say what you feel, because that's the one shot we have.
What I remember most is the first time I met her. The first time of getting that sense of truly being awestruck.
When you meet Anat, it's not just love at first sight. You are struck by a lightning bolt.
Anat Hoffman, my colleague, my friend, my mentor, and my boss for many years, is one of the real heroes of Israeli Judaism and Israeli democracy.
You are an inspiration. You are a rock of brilliance, a person who has literally turned so many of the issues that matter so greatly.
You are a prophet among us, and you are my rabbi and teacher.
As serious as the work, all that you've been doing, you do it with a sense of humor. I really love you.
Everyone here on the Zoom today has become a better Jew and a better person for knowing you.
Thank you, Anat Hoffman, for all that you have done. Thank you for all that you will do.
We're so indebted to you. We're so in awe of you. We are all your students.
Anat, toda rabah.
Thank you so much.
Wow, I'm speechless. I'm speechless. Folks, I'm speechless. This is so lovely. Hey, I really am speechless. But I do want to say something about the elections we just had. You know that the coalition is going to be 64 members of the Knesset. 11 of them are women, all the rest are men. 20 of them are secular, and 44 are either Orthodox or very old or ultra-Orthodox. I think that IRAC needs your support and your understanding now more than ever. And you, if you're sitting there and wondering, how can I help these people in Israel? You've helped me in the last 20 years in 1,000 ways. You helped me first to speak English. The Americans among you taught me how to say, walk and chew at the same time, walk and chew gum at the same time. You taught me how the graveyard shift, what it is to be in the graveyard shift, what it is to be a wet blanket, what it is to be under the weather. These are all American idioms that I picked up. You know who you are. You taught me that. Or the English, who taught me a penny for your thoughts, or a method in my madness. quotes from the English idioms. So I thank you for the language. I want to thank you for lifting my suitcase when it was too heavy. I thank you for keeping all the rocks. You know that it's my life's endeavor to move the Howard Cosell parking lot to North America, and I brought it to you rock by rock. You've hosted me in every room of your house. In Zoom, I saw you in your bedrooms, in the kitchen, and everywhere else. And when I visited and actually lived with you, you opened your hearts and your home to me. You gave me endless amounts of money for projects that were a sure thing, and you dared to fail. You were willing to give money to our Racism Crisis Center before anyone thought that we could actually have it work as successfully as we do. You introduced me to your families. I met girls that are called Goldie and Susie and Kimmy, and these are not Israeli names. You showed me Jewish creativity. I saw more Jewish creativity abroad than I have seen here in Israel, and we are the Jewish state. You called me on difficult times, even though these are god-awful hours for you. You shared your tears with me. These are tears of empathy and tears of caring, and I see them as a treasure. A boy from Milwaukee gave the Women of the Wall, of which I'm still a proud member, an idea of how to sneak the Torah to the wall. I'm not at liberty to tell you what it is, but it is an idea that came from a young boy in Milwaukee. You were willing to answer difficult questions. I'm a nosy person. I asked you, did Judaism help you with cancer? Did Judaism help you with divorce? And you were willing to give me thoughtful, deep, and very insightful answers. You changed my mind. You changed my mind about Brussels sprouts. I thought they could only be boiled and they're horrible, but you showed me that they're wonderful when they're roasted. And I learned in Texas that brisket is wonderful when it's barbecued. Well, changing my mind on something is a serious endeavor. Doug and Steve opened my eyes to the beauty of South Africa. I'm very thankful for that. You listened to me even when I had no voice. I actually came to a very important presentation with laryngitis and I couldn't speak. You listened then. And with your help, we strengthened our staff. And the IRAC staff is, you look up staff in the dictionary. Another word for staff is a magic wand. And IRAC has passionate people who could all work at a better job with better pay and better conditions. I guarantee you, all of them could have better employment, and they choose to work as hard as they do at IRAC because they're passionate about mending the ailments of Israel. We have only one shot. That's the one Jewish state we have. And isn't it wonderful that this staff is determined to make it better? So I'm leaving IRAC in the wonderful, capable hands of Orly Erez Lachovsky. Learn this name, Orly Erez Lachovsky. She is a light unto the nations. Orly means a light unto the nations. And again, thank you for taking me to Costco, to the Texas County Fair, where they actually fry butter and eat fried. That is obscene. And to seeing Hamlet in London with you, Jane, and going to seeing the Super Bowl on TV and explaining to me all these laws of football and all these wonderful commercials. I am so proud of what we did in 20 years, and I am more than grateful to all of you for your generosity and your empathy and your deep commitment to this one Jewish state, the only one on the planet. Thank you very much.
For this event, we have asked our friends around the world to share their special Anat Hoffman moments, the moments when we are inspired by Anat's passion and commitment. the moments of fury together with her at instances of injustices we have faced throughout the years, and the joyous moments of victory when we overcome them. Or the more private Anat moments, the ones when we hear her speak about birds and plants, when we get to eat one of her many, many potato dishes, when we read one of her handwritten letters or postcards, or when we listen to her read a poem by a poet who only she knows. Many, many people responded and sent heartwarming memories. They are gathered in a beautiful booklet, which was designed by your assistant Tal, with the help, of course, of Keren, and we are extremely happy to present you with this booklet that you can now see a part of it, and you'll have time to go over all the wonderful, wonderful blessings and memories and pictures that I'm sure you'll savor for many, many, many years. Concluding this event will be Rabbi David Saperstein, former ambassador at large for international religious freedom under President Obama and director emeritus of the Religious Action Center in Washington. Rabbi Saperstein, it is such an honor, such a pleasure to have you with us to conclude this evening.
Well, thank you so much, Orly. What a spectacular evening it has been in Jerusalem, and joined as we are by fans around the globe for this tribute to our amazing, admirable, awesome, shall we say, arresting Anat, and that's just the A's. I wish we had time to hear everyone's favorite story, Anat Hoffman stories, inspiring, infuriating, insightful, and so often just funny. Mine, Anat, was the moment at the end of our freedom ride when I had the opportunity to see you engage with an Orthodox woman, persuade her to sit up front with you, engaging her in serious reflection on her right to sit where she wanted. And at the end of the line, we and the driver got off, and you asked him, if this had been a more crowded bus and the men had tried to bar us from sitting up front, what would you have done? And without missing a beat, he blurts out, are you kidding? I would have stopped the bus, refused to go on until they let the women sit there where they wanted, because I know who you are, and you sue those of us who mess up. I thought that was just a quintessential Anat moment. I thought, wow, talk about having an impact. And I always admire what I heard from Uri or from someone here, that when you did battle with Echon Omer, when he was a Jerusalem's mayor, and you were battling for years as a member of the city council, and who else could have ended up coming to IRAC with a glowing letter of recommendation from the future prime minister? Look, I've spent 20 years of my life, Anat, as the first chair of the U.S. Commission on International Religious Freedom in the late 90s, as U.S. ambassador for religious freedom in the Obama administration, president of the World Union, visiting nations around the globe, too many of where full religious freedom and equality is denied, where minority segments of the majority faith in a given country, minority faith groups there are disfavored, face discrimination, and in some cases, far worse than anything we face in Israel. That is outright persecution, imprisonment, ethnic cleansing, even genocide. And I've been graced and blessed to work with and meet some of the greatest champions of religious freedom. And Anat Hoffman ranks among the most tenacious, gifted, effective, and within the context of Israel, courageous of those champions. Indeed, Anat, dear friend, when the history of Tzedek Havrati, of Tikkun Olam in Israel is written, you will truly be inscribed as one of Israel's social justice Gedolei Hador, one of the great ones of your generation. It will record what we have been reminded of today so vividly, your relentless, courageous battles for women's rights and immigrant rights against the epidemics of hate, racism, sexism, and injustice. Above all, your visionary leadership in the fight for democracy and for the full equality of the religious rights of non-Orthodox Jews. With Lauren and Noah at your side, you succeeded in stopping bad laws from passing the Knesset and helping to drive good ones through as many years as it would take. And sitting in the Supreme Court in support of Orly, Nikki, and Gilad, guiding us on so many victories often years in the making. What a legacy, Anat. What a lasting difference you have made. You know, I'm so proud of our Religious Action Center, of the URJ and CCIR, and all of us take pride that IRAC was somewhat modeled after the RAC. Yet every one of us would recognize and celebrate, most particularly in the court victories, though, you have surpassed us. And we never had to get arrested for carrying a Torah to the place we chose to worship in the US, only in Israel. First, Uri, then you and the teams of dedicated, talented staffs you assembled brought this institution to heights and influence of which we could have only dreamed of in the beginning. And now, this gift, Anat, you have given to the people of Israel and to Reform Jews everywhere will, under Orly's leadership, reach yet greater heights. Mi yodea im le kazot. Indeed, for such a time as this, has this institution reached such influence and effectiveness. For as Israel faces its current crossroads with what will almost certainly be the most right-wing and ultra-Orthodox religious governing coalition in its history, we will face efforts to restrict the authority of the Supreme Court, undermine the rule of law, reverse some of the very advances in the equality of rights for women, immigrants, non-Orthodox Jews you achieved, Anat, for which we salute you tonight. And exactly at such a time as this, we need an even stronger, bolder, better resourced IRAC than ever before. Ensuring Anat's legacy by promising to secure that strength, that boldness, those resources is the finest tribute that we can pay this remarkable woman who has so graced our lives. So I want to ask every one of you right now, go into the chat, click on that link that would allow you to make a contribution. Just do it. Get the link up in your browser so when we close this great event, it won't disappear here. And then as Orly closes this celebration of achievement, let each and every one of us commit ourselves today to continue this tribute by making a contribution to IRAC, fortifying Anat's vision, Anat's dream, and the lasting contribution of her career. Truly, Anat, you have inspired every one of us. We love you, and may you truly go, Mechayel Echayel, from strength to strength for many years to come.
Thank you so much, Rabbi Saperstein. And I want to thank every one of you for joining us for this special event. And thank you for your constant support, which gives us energy to continue, especially at these turbulent times. Together with all of you, we will continue to work for an Israel of justice, pluralism, equality, and tolerance. Thank you so much from all of us at IRAC.